How the hell you doing, YouTube? Today we're back with a brand new video. Today's video is a follow-on from the last video that I posted on the YouTube channel. It is, you see me prep this room. So the chimney breast I beaded and bonded, and then set some other beads in the room. But basically what you're going to see me do is finish almost all of this room bar one wall. As you see, we're starting off the way that we always do, and that's with PVA. So when we use PVA, I usually mix it 2 to 1. So that's 2 water to 1 PVA. You can go on neat with so basically no water, but I think it's always better watering it down a little bit, especially if you think that the walls are going to have real bad suction, which these did. You can see the top bit that I done there, the moisture's already been sucked out of the PVA. So we're just going to do all the walls. You'll see later on these last couple of walls here that I do, I actually have to go back over them again with the PVA because it's completely dried in, and it's important that you get over your skim while it's you skim over the PVA while it's tacky. If it's not tacky, redo the PVA. It's not going to be really specific, this video. You're not going to get it nice and zoomed in to see what I'm doing. This video was more to just show you what it's like doing sort of bigger stretches of work. You can see like this is quite a lot of skim. So what we mixed was 3 completely full buckets of water, which is about 4 3/4 buckets of water, and it mixes around 3 bags of skim. So that's 3 bags of skim for the first coat, 3 bags of skim for the second coat. When you're going over walls and stuff that are sort of have high suction, it's a good idea not to put loads on. If I was skimming over plasterboard, I could probably put double the amount on. You can see here I'm using a speed skim to flatten in my first coat. This is also important when you're doing big stretches of, like volume, lots and lots of skim. Flatten it out as you go, because there's a good chance that if I hadn't done this, when I get back to this wall, after coating all the rest of the walls that I do here, that it could be hard. And if it is hard and you can't get the lines out, the lines will actually show through in your next coat of skim, and it makes the work look untidy. You can't get it flat, but it makes it look untidy. So as you can see here, I started on the right hand side at the top, and that's because I'm left-handed. And what I'll do is I'll work from right to left. If you were right-handed, you can see the doorway here just on the left of the screen. You would have started on this wall and worked from left to right. If you're just beginning, if you're just learning how to skim, or you haven't really a lot of experience, it's a good idea to not do walls directly beside each other. So you'll see here in a minute, and you can see there in the background the 2 walls. You can see me hitting these walls again with PVA, but you can see in the background the 2 walls together. That's what we call is a wet angle, and you'll see here again. I'll bring the speed skim and I'll straighten some of the plaster, and then I'll go back to coating. But you'll see here, I'm going to finish, once I get round this chimney breast, I'm going to do this little side bit, and then I'm going to do the wall beside it, the door wall, and that's going to give me another wet angle. It's not a great idea if you're just learning how to plaster. to do wet angles. You see, also I'm going to put a drop of scrim tape here. I've covered the cracks with skim, and then I just put the tape over. That's to stop it cracking. Yeah, it's not a good idea to do wet angles when you first start skimming. It is something that you can work up to, but not a good idea right at the start. What I would advise Marshalltown do a good angle trial. So if you are actually going to do this, the wet angle, so just a wall beside another wall where both angles are wet, use a Marshalltown corner trowel or whatever brand you like, and use that to get the corners nice and straight first. But then you have to be super careful when you're troweling into the corners, because you can leave really messy corners if it's not done right. If you do it the other way, where you don't have a wet angle, you do opposites, so one wall facing the other, you always have nice clean angles because you're never digging into the other angle with your trowel. It's important always to stay in the same pattern. So you'll see there that I've, as I was saying before, worked from right to left. So I'll always do the same pattern. I'll go from right to left, and then I'll drop down to the bottom of the wall and go from right to left, and then on to the next one, right to left, drop to the bottom, right to left. And you do this right through the whole thing. When you're troweling up, when you're flattening in, you do the same thing, from right to left, top first and then the bottom. This first coat, or this second coat, it's very important that you get it as flat as you can. You can't really see here because we're zoomed out so much, but you can see it in other videos, that I take care to take as many lines out of the plaster as I can as I go. When you're putting big amounts of stuff on like this, you do rush and you can leave lines, and that's where most people will mess up their skim. They'll decide to put loads on. They'll go as fast as they can because they need to make sure that the plaster doesn't set on them. They'll leave lines, and then when they come back to flattening their wall, if it has already started to dry in, you get lines in your finish. Basically, the ridges that dry, and then you try to sort of flatten down. They never completely flatten out, and it leaves a bumpy, wavy wall, which is, if you're doing it in your own house and you don't mind a wavy wall, then I suppose it's not really the worst thing in the world. But if you're doing it in a client's house, then it's not going to fly. You can see here now that we've come to the flattening in stage. So what I'll do is I'll go over the wall in the same pattern, and I'll flatten the plaster and just make sure all the lines are out of it. You need to do this as early as you can. So basically, as soon as you finish putting the skim on the wall, and before you even clean your bucket out, you want to get straight on the wall and you want to flatten the lines out. Doing this early, it does two things. It makes sure that any lines that you have left are now gone. But what it also does is it sets you up to be able to finish this wall with two more trowels. If you didn't do this early, if you didn't sort of close all the plaster in early, you would more than likely have to do slightly more to finish it, so it may be an extra trowel or two. This stuff that we use is Carlite Ultra Finish. It's from Gyprock. It's a Irish company, and the Ultra Finish actually setting time is between an hour and a half to 2 hours. So in domestic work, we don't really get to start early, so we have to do as much as possible to get as much done as we can. So this being able to set in 2 hours, usually a set for us will take 3 hours, so an hour to put it on, and then an hour and a half to put it on, and then an hour and a half to trowel it up. Usually what we'll do as it starts to set, as I said before, we call it turning black. You'll get like black patches all over it. Once it starts with the black patches, we use our flaxie trowels and we'll flaxie it and finish it. So you can actually finish it quicker than the 2 hours. But basically all this does is it makes sure that we can finish 2 sets a day. So a big room like this, I finished it in 1 day. Now granted, we were here the day before for I think an hour and a half, and set beads and get everything prepped, but it made sure that I could do this in 1 day. Now what you can see that I'm doing is the next trowel. This is after you do your flatten. After you flatten it in, we use a water brush and we manipulate the surface of the plaster with the brush, sort of making it creamy, the surface, and then we'll take our cutting trowel is what we call it, but it's basically almost new prima-shaped Marshalltown, part worn I think they call it, and it's super blunt. It's not good for finishing. You probably could finish plaster with it, but it's not ideal. And because it's blunt, when you put pressure on it at a decent angle, it actually cuts all the ridges and bumps and lumps out of your plaster. And this is actually just another step in being able to finish this plaster within 3 hours of it being mixed. Again, what you're doing is you're leaving no blemishes on the surface. So you flatten it in, and that takes away most of the lines. You come with your cutting trowel, and then that removes all the lines. It leaves the plaster sort of looking like a matte finish. It's hard to explain. It basically leaves it completely flat, completely straight, and it just makes it so you can sort of see the colour of the plaster changing here as I trowel. It's sort of turning like a matte white, like a white hue to it, and that's just all the lines, and it's just leaving it ready for the next trowel, which is our flaxie. The flaxie trowel is probably the most important. Again, we use flaxie trowels because you get more pressure on the plaster, which in turn means that you're not having to polish it a few times, giving it your last trowel and then polishing it, because you couldn't get enough pressure on it with a regular trowel. It's important when you're using flaxie trowels like this one. This is an 18-inch Rafina Superflex. It's important that you don't use it before this stage. You can't really see in the video, but what you can there, just above the door, you can see the little patch of black, and that's all we're waiting for. That patch of black means that the plaster has set enough where when we use our flaxie trowel, the plaster doesn't tear under the pressure. If you go before you have any of the black on the surface, it'll just completely tear the plaster, and leave a shitty finish, basically. So with this flexi trowel, then we'll just give the walls, we're doing the same method as before. We're agitating the surface with the water brush. This time it doesn't leave sort of like it doesn't leave it like creamy. It just sort of, you're just brushing moisture on. You could also use a spray bottle for this. I know a lot of people do. And then you basically just trowel it until it's finished. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I have a lot more content coming. Of like 5 or 6 videos in the making, so I hope you enjoyed. Check out the social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.